Hi, everyone. Welcome to another edition of First and North, where we keep you up to date on all the happenings in the best division in football. That's the NFC North. Joining me on this week's edition of First and North from Fox in Detroit, glad to have him back, the voice of the NFL leading Lions, Dan Miller. From Fox in Milwaukee, we haven't seen Brandon Cruz in a while. The Packers enjoyed dolphin as part of their Thanksgiving dinner. And from Fox Minneapolis, Ahmad Hicks, who we see every week, where the Vikings pulled out another one-score win. All right, let's take a look at the NFC North standings after Week 13 before we get into the show with the guys. Lions are officially off to their best start in franchise history. They are 11-1. Lions fans thankful for the Bears, who have now dropped 6 in a row. Vikings 10-2, third time since 2017 off to a start like that. Packers staying in the race because the Dolphins still don't know how to play in the cold. All right, let's bring back the guys. We had some major news coming out of Chicago that everyone expected following that Thanksgiving Day game. Bears fired head coach Matt Eberflus after that end of game disaster. Writing was on the wall. Frankly, I was surprised that the Bears had made Matt Eberflus conduct his Zoom call the following day, but team president Kevin Warren admitted yesterday he regrets the way Friday was handled. Matt Eberflus finished up with a 14-32 record overall, 3-19 in road games, did not win a Sunday road game the entire time he was head coach of the Bears, and was a brutal 5-19 in one-score games, all reasons for his dismissal. Bears are tied for the second most losses in the NFL by 6 points or fewer this season. Means they're in almost every game. Thomas Brown is now the interim head coach. 3 weeks ago, this guy was the Bears passing game coordinator. He'll continue calling offensive plays. Bears also promoted wide receiver coach Chris Beatty to offensive coordinator, and defensive coordinator Eric Washington will now call plays for the defense. That was a role that was held by Matt Eberflus. Let's bring back Dan Miller, voice of the Lions. And Dan, great to have you back, as I mentioned, here on First and North. You were calling the game on Thanksgiving Day. What was your reaction to the ending, and what did the Lions players have to say afterwards?
Yeah, it was surreal just watching that because, look, you're back on your heels if you're the Lions at that point. You're thinking, okay, the Bears are going to have a shot at least to tie this thing and send it to overtime. And they're in position to take a couple of shots to maybe win this thing. Then the sack happens, 31 seconds to go. They've still got a timeout. They've got third and a mile, but there's still time to certainly get into field goal position. Maybe you take a shot deep. Whatever they wanted to do, they had time to do it. And then all of a sudden you're looking and there's nothing happening. They're going to the line. The clock's ticking down. It's at 20. Then Caleb Williams is kind of telling people, you go here, you go here, you go here. They're at 15, they're at 12, they're at 10. Then you look up and you're like, this is going to be the final play of the game. I mean, it took 31 seconds to get to the point where the game was over, but 6 seconds left before they snapped it. And it was really just one of those things you watched unfold and you couldn't believe it because you're in the mode of, okay, one play, stop, and let's make them attempt a field goal, which lately has not been a lock for the Bears. They had one blocked each of the previous 2 weeks. And then all of a sudden it's the final play of the game. And you know, my analyst, Lomas Brown, one of my guys next to me at the end of it, I mean, the clock hits here and he goes, Matt Eberflus, that's it, he's gone. So I don't know if you guys know this in Chicago, but Lomas broke the story the day before it actually happened. But look, it was completely dysfunctional. Eberflus froze. I think if you had a veteran quarterback in there, I think if it was Goff, I think if it was Dak, I think if it was a lot of these guys with skins on the wall, they would have looked around and said, you know what, timeout, and taken it upon themselves. But look, Lou, it's just a bad look all the way around, and there's just no way. I mean, look, Eberflus was in massive trouble before that happened, and coming out of there and hearing some of the comments from the Bears locker room, there's no way to survive that.
All right, Dan, Lions absolutely dominated the first half of that game. A team that had not allowed a touchdown in 2 games. What happened in the second half to the Lions defense that allowed the Bears to even have an opportunity at the end of the game?
Yeah, let me go back first and just say I think the reason that was still a game was because the Lions had red zone issues. They settled for 3 instead of getting 7. If they do what they've normally done this year, and they're one of the better red zone teams in the league, they would have found a way to get in there, score 7, and maybe you have 24 points or 28 points at halftime instead of sitting there up with 16 points. So, look, I think that's been one thing that when they've struggled a bit this year, their only loss was to Tampa Bay, and that was their worst red zone game of the year when they got to the red zone 7 times and had 1 touchdown. So that was an issue. But, look, defensively, this team right now is beat up. They got a lot of injuries on that side of the ball. In this game, only made that worse with Levi Onwuzurike going down, James Pascal going down, DJ Reader hurt his shoulder. So I think there's a growth in the number of injuries that they have on that side of the ball. I think it started to impact them. And then, look, give the Bears some credit. They started making plays. Caleb Williams started hitting some of his receivers. They've got terrific playmakers on that side of the ball. So I think it was just a confluence of things that allowed the Bears to get back into it. And certainly it was a game at the end. But when all is said and done, it is that last sequence that people will remember, because that took it from a potential Bear win and a potential Lions loss to the end of Eberflus in Chicago.
Yeah, it truly was a tale of two halves, as you see there. All right, let's head to Minneapolis. I want to bring in Ahmad Hicks. Ahmad, Vikings love playing one-score games, don't they? I mean, Sam Darnold steps up again. Jeez.
Yeah, he in his history, he hadn't had a lot of success, coming from behind and winning games and rallying his troops to victory. So he's just getting all those boxes checked right now here in Minnesota. All jokes aside, Jonathan Gannon and the Cardinals did a phenomenal job. You look at their record, it doesn't indicate just how good of a football team they are. And they did a phenomenal job disguising their looks and making Sam Darnold just check the ball down or be a little bit quick in his process. If you guys remember, if you go back a couple of weeks ago versus the Jacksonville Jaguars, Sam Darnold was pressing, just forcing everything. And versus the Cardinals, it seems like he was just taking the check down, taking what the defense gave them. And then they had to go into halftime and really figure out how to attack this Cardinals defense. And Kevin O'Connell said it took some major in-game adjustments, and he was extremely proud of this offense and how they were able to handle it, especially Sam Darnold.
Ahmad, Brian Flores' defense slams the door again in the fourth quarter, right?
Yeah, I mean, they show up time and time again. The big difference from this Vikings team this year to the one that was 13-4 2 seasons ago is the defense and their ability to close out games, not based on luck or being in the right position at the right time, but having the amount of skill set and the right coaching to allow these guys to flourish. They lead the NFL in interceptions. They're up there in takeaways. I mean, red zone defense versus the Cardinals, you just look at it, held them 1 of 6 to 5 field goals, forced Kyler Murray in the fourth quarter to 2 interceptions. So Byron Murphy Jr. came up clutch again with his 5th interception on the season. Jonathan Grenard, a monster game defensively. He now has 10 sacks on the season. So this defense, I believe, is the difference maker, because even when the offense is struggling and Sam Darnold is not clicking like he wasn't in the first half, they can keep them in games and hold the other team in check.
D coordinator Brian Flores going to find himself another head coaching job at the conclusion of this season. Green Bay. Brandon, Packers stay afloat in the NFC North with a win on Thanksgiving against the Dolphins. Another clean game by Jordan Love, 2 in a row now, right?
Yeah, and he's getting into a much bigger and a much more consistent rhythm. That's 2 games in a row without throwing an interception, and he was really efficient, and he spread the ball out, and that is where this team really excels. If he's not making mistakes by throwing a bad interception or an ill-advised throw, and they move the ball around to different players, that really opens it up for him, and he did that very well against the Dolphins on Thursday night. And a big reason for that, of course, has been the establishment of the running game. I mean, Josh Jacobs has really set the tone there. And for them to be able to run the ball so well and so much and so powerfully, I mean, you get big chunk gains from Josh Jacobs. That allows the receiving game to become that much more dangerous. And then they use Tucker Kraft more. So I think what they realized is a few weeks ago, they weren't looking so good. Tucker Kraft not involved very much. All of a sudden, the last few games, and especially against the Dolphins, Tucker Kraft was heavily involved in the offense, and Josh Jacobs running the ball really has established a ground game in Green Bay that has given Love the chance to not make so many mistakes. So it's complementary football within the offensive unit, and it's paying off at this point as they head into Detroit.
Yeah, they're going to be tested playing their 3rd game in 12 days. We're going to talk about that coming up. We need to take a break, guys. Lions and Packers get the week started Thursday night. Both teams, though, dealing with injuries. We get the latest from the boys. And did Jahmyr Gibbs help the Packers out after his latest social media post? Dan's going to fill us in. Plus, Aaron Jones struggling to hold on to the football. Time to panic in Minnesota. We're going to get to that and much, much more as we continue here on First and North. Stay with us.
The intensity is on a whole new level.
Hell's Kitchen is cooking with
Head chefs only.
Head chefs only, Eagles only.
This is going to be a savage competition.
Fox Thursdays,
She's a bulldog. It's hot.
Big Egos,
Get it together.
We do this every day.
mean big blow-ups for Gordon.
Would you eat this?
No, Chef.
But you expect them to eat it. Where is the passion?
Hell's Kitchen Head Chefs only. All new Thursdays on Fox and watch anytime on Hulu.
We're back here on First and North. I'm Lou Canellis at our Fox 32 studios in Chicago. Let's bring back the crew. Dan Miller joins us from Fox in Detroit. Brandon Cruz, Fox Milwaukee. Ahmad Hicks, Fox Minneapolis. Dan, I'll get back to you right now. Lions beat the Bears, but, man, they are a beat-up bunch. What will their defense look like on Thursday?
Yeah, it's going to be thin. I mean, you're very well going to see 4 guys that were just signed this week playing in that game.
Wow.
And that's really been the case for them that we've seen for the past couple of weeks, from Zeke Turner to David Long. Obviously, Zadarius Smith was a guy they traded for, but they have been running guys in there after less than a week in the system, but it's really been forced on them by the number of injuries that they've had. And the one thing that Dan Campbell won't do is he won't allow it to be an excuse. He won't, allow his guys anything other than the expectation that they're going to find a way to go out there and win. But, those guys that they signed, I believe are going to play against the Packers on Thursday night, and I believe they may get a decent amount of snaps along with the guys that are obviously there and healthy and holdovers from the team that they've had. But it's really stunning the number of injuries that they have had. And last year, they had it kind of at the cornerback position. And then this year, it has been defensive line, it has been linebacker, and it has been in the secondary, in particular at the cornerback position, not so much at safety. But it's, again, they haven't blinked yet. And they've won 10 games in a row. And during one of the worst parts of the injury string, they had 10 straight quarters without giving up a touchdown. So it's been significant. It certainly is noteworthy. But Dan Campbell's not going to give his guys any reason to be in that locker room thinking, okay, we can let up because we have injuries, or that's an excuse for not playing well. Their tone that he sets is, don't care, next man up, go play, expect to win.
Next thing you're going to tell me is that they're promoting Jamal Adams from the practice squad, who they just signed.
That's happening.
I want to quickly I want to quickly ask you about Jahmyr Gibbs. He posted some, let's just call it sensitive information regarding Lions plays, and it went on social media. He was taking a picture of someone and there were plays in the background. What has Dan Campbell said of this?
Well, I think it became a story kind of because when Campbell was hit with it, he wasn't really aware of it. He doesn't lock into social media too much during the season. But his attitude has been, look, this is Dan Campbell we're talking about here. You guys know what he's like. He's like, I'll give them the whole playbook if they want the whole playbook. They may have to change what they call some things and change some checks they have at the line or audibles that they have at the line. I mean, Ben Johnson had some fun with it because he was asked about it, the offensive coordinator, and he said, how do you know we didn't want that out there? Indicating that maybe they gave him some bad information. But he also pointed this out. There was a point in that first game where it was 3rd and 6, and the Lions called an audible, and Kenny Clark, who's a great player that they have immense respect for, stands up and does this, basically saying it's a run. Well, they ran for 9 yards. So you may know what's coming in this league, and I'm not just saying this about the Lions, but if you can't stop it because the other team executes it, it doesn't help you a lot. So I don't think it was optimal under any circumstances. I think it was a learning situation for Jahmyr and the entire team. But I think it was a speed bump for them, and then they fix it, and maybe they change a couple things, and that won't be a reason that anything particular happens in this game against Green Bay, win or lose.
All right, sounds like it. Brandon, tell me about the status of your offensive line in Green Bay. You guys are dealing with your own injuries.
Yeah, but the good news on Tuesday is Elton Jenkins was back at practice, so that bodes well if he's able to go on Thursday. And the offensive line has been key to the success of the Packers. I mean, nobody has really touched Jordan Love a whole lot in the last few weeks. You also see how big the running game has been, as I've mentioned. The offensive line has been key. The only real injuries right now are on the defensive side. Corey Ballantyne didn't practice on Tuesday, as well as Edgerrin Cooper. But then back on the, and Jair Alexander is back on the field. So he also looks like he could go on Thursday, which would be huge for this team because he's missed the past couple of weeks. So when you look at the Packers, more defensively is where the injury concerns are. Offensively, Romeo Doubs has been in the concussion protocol, but he was on the field this week, so they are expecting there is a chance for him to play on Thursday as well. So health-wise, the Packers are much better than they thought they might be when practices started on Sunday.
Ahmad, running back Aaron Jones, a career-high 5 fumbles already this season. What is he saying about this? Any concern?
I mean, he's owning up for it, right now, and he says he has to do better. He got benched for it during the game, but Kevin O'Connell came out after the game and said he still has trust in him. You saw it on those 2 final drives offensively for the Vikings where he dropped the touchdown. No one's talking about that. He dropped a touchdown in the back corner on a dime from Sam Darnold, then came back the next drive and had the game-winning touchdown. Look, fumbling is one of those things where as running backs, you don't want to talk to them about it before the game because then it's in their brain and they're thinking about it, and they all know the Cardinal rule. You can't fumble the ball when you're a running back, but good thing the Vikings have Cam Akers to kind of come in, give them a blow and whatnot, help get them refocused. And the one thing that Aaron Jones always says is he has a lot of heart, and the guys in the locker room are instilling that confidence in him as well as Kevin O'Connell, the head coach. So I don't think there will be any problems moving forward, but I do think his leash will be a little bit tighter moving forward, that if he does fumble early in the game or something like that, that the team will rely on Cam Akers.
Yeah, Cam Akers right there. Here in Chicago, guys, as I mentioned earlier, Thomas Brown takes over. 5-game audition right now for the permanent head coaching job for Brown. President CEO Kevin Warren said that, hey, this is going to be the most coveted job in the NFL. A few reasons why. You've got your quarterback, Caleb Williams, $80 million in salary cap space. Team is looking to build a new home. There's a lot of reasons why guys would want this Bears job. Potential candidates include the Lions' Ben Johnson, maybe defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn as well. Thomas Brown will call plays. This time he's going to be on the sidelines. He's been up in the booth. Let's see if he can handle it. Calling plays and running the team as a head coach, not going to be easy, something he has never done. Offense, though, has made strides under Brown. What concerns me is their play to start games. Here are the numbers. Bears have scored 46 second-half points over the last 3 weeks. Third most in the NFL. 30 of those points coming in the fourth quarter. That leads the league over the last 2 weeks. Getting off to a fast start, that has been an issue with this team all year long. Good news, Caleb Williams, man, has proven to never be out of a game. All right, time for another timeout. When we come back, we're going to get you set up for this week's games in the NFC North as we continue at First and North.
Our journey to $250,000 begins now.
TV's biggest game show is back, and it's even bigger.
This is not the same.
Now, 100 players battling for territory.
There's so much strategy this season.
If you want to win,
Taylor Swift songs.
you have to do it.
Hero. Love. Together. Hate.
Light it up!
The Floor, only Wednesdays on Fox and watch anytime on Hulu.
Welcome back to First and North. Here are the matchups for the NFC North, Week 14, Thursday. Green Bay travels to Ford Field. Packers still in the fight for the division title. Lions are holding on to the #1 seed in the conference, the NFC. Sunday, Kirk Cousins going back to Minnesota for the first time after signing with the Falcons, and Atlanta is really struggling. Bears travel out west to take on the 49ers. Talk about timing. San Francisco will be without Christian McCaffrey, who was placed on AR, and a whole bunch of other guys. Dan Miller joins us from Fox in Detroit. Brandon Cruz at Fox Milwaukee. Ahmad Hicks, Fox Minneapolis. I'm going to start with you, Brandon, in Green Bay. Under Matt LaFleur, this Packers team has been historically real good in the month of December. Now, is this team better today than it was the first time they played the Lions at Lambeau Field this year?
I think they are, and in December they do play much better football under Matt LaFleur. I think the reason they're better this time than the last time they faced the Lions was the fact that Jordan Love was coming off of injury in that game. The conditions weren't great, and he wasn't as mobile and as comfortable with things as he is now. He's had a lot of time to heal up. He is playing much better football. He's been more efficient. He's been smarter with the football, and he's been helped out with a great running attack. So for me, this is a team that is in a much better place, and mainly because of the fact that Jordan Love is healthier and that he has the help in the backfield, and he still has so many weapons out to throw to, and that puts them in a better position than they were when they hosted the Lions in a very wet and cold night.
Brandon, I'll tell you what, that Packers defense has been stellar the last 2 weeks. Now they have to slow down. Sonic and Knuckles, they call those guys Gibbs and Montgomery in Detroit.
Yeah, and that's the thing. This front line really needs to understand that to be able to be effective against the Lions is to be able to stop that running attack, but also for them is they need to be able to put pressure on Jared Goff. If they don't put pressure on a quarterback, they tend to have issues on the backside. Even though Xavier McKinney's having a great season, without Jair Alexander, it has kind of exposed them on the outside. So they need to be able to stop the run and then be able to put pressure on Goff if they want to come out of Detroit with a win. And I think that with the possibility of Jair coming back on Thursday, that might put them in a better position to stop the run because they have such a good lockdown corner if he is healthy when he takes the field.
All right, let me bring in Dan. Dan, big game, not only in the division for the Lions, but for seeding in the NFC playoff race as well. Packers held Detroit to its lowest yard total back in Week 9. What are you expecting from this Lions offense this time around?
Yeah, I think they're looking for some consistency because they have been real good at times, and then there have been times where they've slowed down, like the second half of the Bears game, where it just hasn't been as explosive or as consistent in terms of drive to drive. So I think that's what they're looking for. You nailed it. They're going to start with that running game, and it's really what propels this team. It's what allows them to open up play action where Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jamison Williams and Sam Laporta and guys like that can become more effective. So I think that's what they're looking for offensively. And I think at a time when your defense is beat up, you do need maybe your offense to lead and have one of their better games and maybe have a game where they put up 30 or some odd points and take some of the pressure off the defense. But look, I think they understand too, this Packer team is loaded and this Packer team is playing really well. The name that has been talked about most in Allen Park at the facility this week has been Josh Jacobs.
Wow.
Because as good as Jordan Love is and as good as those receivers are, it is that running game that I think has really opened things up for Green Bay. So Detroit has been very good against the run this year. They have got to continue that, but they will not have the same kind of depth on that defensive line that they have had up until this point. So it's a big challenge, but there's no place you'd rather be, guys. We sat and watched you guys play in important games for a lot of years. The Lions are happy to be in this, and it's going to be a lot of fun on Thursday night.
Yeah, you just saw Jacobs has the second most rushing yards against the Lions since 2019. Ahmad, let me bring you in, buddy. Will the Vikings roll out the red carpet for Kirk Cousins and his return to U.S. Bank Stadium?
I'm sure the fans will. I'm sure the fans will give him a standing ovation. They'll applaud him. You know, they loved him here, and a lot of them were very sad to see him go. But now that they have Sam Darnold and this 10-2 Vikings team, I'm pretty sure they will be ready to cheer against him once that clock starts and the game actually kicks off. Kirk Cousins has been extremely bad in his last 3 games, 6 interceptions, but he was good for the Vikings. But the knock on him while he was here, he could never win that big game. He could never get that team over the hump, and you're kind of seeing that in the last 3 weeks as the Falcons are legitimate contenders, you know, in the NFC South, but they can't get many wins. So I expect more interceptions this week and maybe some more lost fumbles for Kirk Cochains.
All right, Vikings getting the Falcons at the right time. Speaking of getting a team at the right time, Bears are hoping that's the case in Santa Clara Sunday, late afternoon game. 49ers have lost their last 3 games to Seattle, Green Bay, and in the snow in Buffalo on Sunday. That was a beautiful sight. This is a different 49ers team without Christian McCaffrey. I don't care what anyone says. Even their defense is struggling right now, giving up nearly 40 points. and a lot of yards over the last 2 games. And after a coaching change, hey, Bears hoping to get a boost from Thomas Brown and snap this 6-game skid. Dan, Brandon, Ahmad, great work as always. For my NFC North crew, I'm Lou Canellis. Thanks for watching. We will see you again next week here on First and North.